So you guys want to do even more crit damage on your repeaters? Well, we got you covered in this new Impulse themed repeater build right after this. Now, this build is going to take a bit of a different approach to getting you the move speed you need to get the best damage out of this build. So it is going to be using Shrike's Lantern for some of the move speed, and the Molten Cell as well as the Reforges on your repeaters to get that move speed optimized to get the most damage out of Impulse with this build. So let's jump down into Dauntless and check out the build. All right, for the weapon, we're going to be running the Dynamic Deadlights. This is the Malkyrion legendary weapon. You're going to need that for this build to work properly. For the cells, we're going to be slapping 2 Impulse cells at +3 into it. You guys can use 1 + 3 Impulse if you only have 1 so far. Just put as much Impulse in here as you can. If you don't have any Impulse, you can throw Cunning in there, but it's not going to get you the same effect. This whole build is really themed around these Impulse cells, so if you don't have them yet, I've got another build video up for repeaters from about a month or so ago. Go check out that build. That's going to be the build you want to go with for now. For the chamber, we're going to be using the Marksman chamber so we can really focus extra damage on the parts. Not that the parts are going to stay on the behemoth very long with this build. For the grip, we're going with the Captain's Grip. This is going to give you some extra attack speed. Never hurts to have some extra attack speed, right? For the mod, we're going to go with Precision Sights. Deal 8 damage, increasing the more times you attack the same part. Stacks up to 5 times. Just gives you a little extra damage. Kind of a similar effect to Recycle, just not percentage based, just flat damage based. For the bond, we're going with Savit's Avengers. This is going to give us +3 pulse, as well as the unique effect from the Savit's weapons, which is going to be that lightning boomerang attack that does a pretty good chunk of damage. You can run this build with a lot of different Omnicells. Revenant is definitely the way to go with this one. Revenant's going to build up some stacking damage. And the behemoth parts are going to be breaking enough that you shouldn't have too much problem not getting hit by the behemoth, because it's going to keep getting part staggered pretty rapidly with this build. If you want some extra survivability, you can always switch this out for Iceborne or for Bastion, whichever one fits your playstyle. For the Lantern, this is not optional. You are going to need to use Shrike's Zeal, and we're going to be putting a +3 Catalyst into this build. We're going for +6 Catalyst total with this build. If you do not want to run Catalyst, I will have a link in the video description for a non-Catalyst version of the build, as well as this one that we're going over in the video. For the helmet, we've got Time Weaver's Helmet. This is going to give us +3 Predator, and we're going to slap a +3 Recycle cell in there. For the chest plate, we're going to go with the Hell plate, and we're going to put a +3 Pulse cell in there. This is also going to give us +3 Molten. This is the only Molten we're getting in the build, and that Molten is going to give us 20% movement speed. That with the Impulse is going to get us up to 30%. Some Reforges on the repeaters are going to get us another 5%, and then we're going to get the rest from Shrike's Zeal. Now the gloves, we're going with Malkyrion's Grasp, and since you're already going to be going to farm the Dynamic Deadlights, you might as well pick up these gloves while you're at it. This is going to give you +3 Predator, and we're going to slap a +3 Recycle cell in there. And then for the boots, we're going with the Time Weaver's Leggings. This is going to give us +3 Catalyst, and we're going to slap the +3 Berserker cell in there to get some stacking core damage. Now, if you're newer to the game and you're wondering, how do you unlock these Time Weaver pieces of armor that we're using in the build? I've got a video that I just posted that goes over how to unlock the Time Weaver set. There should be a link somewhere up here, hopefully, if I got it to work right, that will show you how to unlock the Time Weaver set. With all these new finesse cells that are really, really powerful, stuff like Recycle and Impulse coming out, it is definitely a set of armor you're going to want to pick up. It's going to be really mandatory to have at least the helmet, the gloves, and the legs, in my personal opinion, to work in a lot of the stuff for the new Gauntlet cells, for a lot of the new builds that are going to be coming out revolving around stuff like Impulse and Recycle. So I would definitely check out that video and get this armor set crafted as soon as possible. Now for the tonic loadout, we're going to go with the Blitz tonic to give us some extra attack speed. Since we're going to be hitting so hard, we might as well be hitting fast while we're at it. A Frenzy tonic to increase our base damage a little bit higher. Get some extra damage and never hurt anybody. And then an Ether Drive tonic, and this is the most important tonic in this build. With the non-catalyst version, you're not going to necessarily need to be drinking Ether Drive tonics, but the Ether Drive tonic in combination with Catalyst is going to let us activate Shrike's Zeal more often, giving us that extra 15% movement speed to get those crits even bigger with Impulse. Now for the perk breakdown, we've got +6 Catalyst. This gives us +60% tonic effectiveness and duration. +6 Impulse, which is going to give us 10% movement speed and increase our critical hit damage by 10% for every 5% movement speed we have. The benefit from this only goes up to 50% movement speed increase or 100% extra critical strike damage. Then we've got +6 Predator. After not taking hostile damage for 15 seconds, deal 35% 35% more damage, and you lose the 35% damage as soon as you get hit by a hostile target. Plus 6 pulls every 5th hit of your weapon is a guaranteed critical strike, and it gives us an extra 15% critical strike damage, bumping us up even higher with our crits. Plus 6 recycle, and the only weapon I would recommend running plus 6 recycle on is going to be repeaters. Plus 3 works on some other weapons. Good enough. Good enough. It's not great for every weapon, but it works good enough on some weapons. Plus 6 is reserved exclusively for repeaters, though. Plus 6 recycle is going to give you 10% extra damage when you hit the same part, and that stacks up to 6 times for a whopping 60% extra damage, outpacing most of the other damage cells in the game as long as you can keep your focus on one part. That's going to be a really key thing to practice with this build. If you're unfamiliar with playing repeaters and recycle, make sure you work on targeting the same part repeatedly. Once that part breaks, move on to the next part. Then we've got Berserker. This is going to reduce our maximum hit points by 150, but it's going to give us a stacking 2% damage buff for 3 seconds, and that stacks up to 10 times, giving us an extra 20% damage for only 1 cell slot. And then we've got plus 3 Molten. Dealing damage generates 2 orbs. There's a slight cooldown for this of 23 seconds. The orbs grant you immunity to burn and increase your attack and movement speed by 20%. Now, I'm not sure if the attack speed increase is also 20%. I should probably have looked that up before recording this video, but the main thing we're looking for with Molten is going to be that 20% move speed increase for the effects of Impulse. Now, some things to keep in mind with this build, guys. If you're running it the way it is with Revenant, you're going to want to get that Revenant shot off after you get a couple attacks in with the repeaters, just to get a couple stacks to recycle, so you get at least 1 recycle stacked tentacle in there. The other thing, before you pop that first stack of Revenant off, I would definitely recommend activating Shrike's Lantern to get the extra crit damage, because you can crit with Revenant, and the crits are beautiful with Revenant on this build because of all that stacking crit damage. Of course, playing around with Predator on this build, you're going to want to try to avoid getting hit very often with this build, because every time you get hit, you're going to lose that 35% extra damage. Temporarily. It's only temporary. Once you start getting part breaks in, though, you should be able to get that Predator buff back up. And once you got that Predator buff up, your Recycle buff up, your Berserker buff up, and your Revenant stacks up, you should be able to break the parts relatively quick and avoid taking any extra damage, because the Behemoth is going to keep getting staggered from the stuns from the part breaks. Now, if you don't want to be chugging a lot of tonics while you're using this build, if you're using the Catalyst version of the build, at least you're going to need to drink at least the Ether Drive Tonic. The Blitz Tonic and the Frenzy Tonic are not necessary, but they are going to increase your overall damage. But the main thing is you're going to want to keep that Ether Drive Tonic so you can keep the Shrike's Zill up and running as much as possible. So if you're not in a fight where you really need all the damage potential of this build, just stop drinking those 2 tonics, but keep drinking that Ether Drive Tonic to keep the Shrike's Zill up for that increased 30% crit while you have Shrike's Zill active. I hope you guys enjoy the build. I got to playtest this build just a little bit before I started recording this video, and the damage numbers on it are absolutely crazy. This build is definitely one-upping my last super heavy damage repeater build from about a month or 2 ago, and that's why I wanted to get it out as soon as possible. Where if you guys are not already in a guild, you're going to want to get into a guild that's actively participating in Gauntlet or has other members in it that are interested in doing Gauntlet, so you can get those impulse cells to get this build put together, or to get a number of other builds put together. I also recently posted a Warpike build that uses the impulse cell that does some pretty crazy damage for Warpike 2, but this build is definitely a step above that. But if you're looking for a Warpike build, I will have that build posted right over here for you guys. And if you guys are looking for a community of friendly people to play Dauntless with, don't forget to check the links in the video description for our Discord server. We've always got people active on there playing Dauntless and willing to give a hand, as well as a bunch more builds in the build channel on there. If you're looking for something a little different, or if you're looking for something in particular, there's probably over 100 builds in there now you guys can take a look at and find something that suits your playstyle. But until next time, guys, I will see you in the next video.